All right, so on this episode, we're going to basically model the commissioning workflow of chargers. How do we commission a charger, charging station, or a charger, and then make it available for drivers to be able to find and locate and basically perform their charging operations, right? So the idea is very simple. We want to basically the people that are going to be working on this is the operator, right, and then the technicians. So how do they assist in and create a workflow for us to be able to commission a charging station or a charger, right, or basically an EVSE as the terminology might accommodate. Right. So let me explain this workflow. So the workflow is really simple. What we want to do is let's just model the workflow and see. So we want to be able to, as we're doing the workflow, we're going to be basically expanding on the features of how this will work with our architecture. Right. So let me write that workflow down. The workflow is basically uh, charger commissioning. This is tiny. Let me make it bigger. So charger commissioning. Is that the right spelling? Commissioning. Well, I can't spell this thing. Let's just leave it like this. Commissioning. Let's hope that's correct. Let me figure out how to spell this thing. Commissioning. Commission. Spelling might be a bit tough. Commission. Okay. I think it's double M. Commissioning. Okay. Sounds like better. Let's hope that's correct. If not correct, my English is bad then. Okay, so the main idea is that we want to be able to follow through with character commissioning. So how would this flow look like, and how would we model our application to adapt and learn about our application? And then this is how I basically derive database structures, database models, and basically services that will be relevant. You understand? And then keep building till we get to code level where this is just high level. We're going to a component level and workflow level before we get to even code. You get the idea. So let's look at for general commissioning, what do we need? What do we need to understand first? We have to understand the physical realities of how this work. So a charging station contains a couple of things, right? We need to know. So if we expand the charging station, what we will end up seeing, let me just keep one of these things because two is confusing, right? But it could be many. So if we zoom into a charging station, what we end up seeing is that a single charging station might have multiple chargers, right? So in the EV world, they call it the EVSA, right? So EV something equipment, forgotten what that is, right? The EVSE. Okay, so let me. I think it's a electric vehicle service equipment. I'm not quite sure, but it's called the EVSE. Let me just draw it out. So you could have many EVSEs, right? So let's just put two for now as an example. A single charging station might have multiple EVSEs. So EVSE1 and EVSE2. So EVSE is basically what we call the charger, but we want to use the right name so that we model it correctly, not just use our own terminology, right? But just know EVSE means charger, right? So this is what the drivers will actually go and connect to their vehicle, basically, right? So the EVSE is what connects to your vehicle, but the EVSE has connectors, right? So connectors is basically like the plug type, like the plug. So if there are different kind of plugs, right, that are used in electric vehicles. So the EVSE might have a different kind of plug. So let me just keep modeling that. So we have the call that the connector one or connector A and okay, that's not what I'm supposed to connect, and connector B, right? So this one might just have only one connector, this one might have two connector, right? So this is how a real charging station looks like, right? So a charging station might have multiple EVSEs, and then each EVSE might have their own connectors, right? And remember, we don't control this charging station. This is all the reality looks like, right? But we need to, when we are commissioning a charging station or a new EVSE added to that station, we need to be aware of these realities, right? So, and then this is how we're going to model in our system, so we can be aware of what do we have in the physical world, right? So, so definitely we already know that this needs to be modeled, definitely. So I'm going to go through a flow. So the first idea is that the operator might definitely need to register the charging station. We need to have a database of all our charging stations, right? So we need to put this, and then so this is the workflow, and then for data we'll need, I'll just be writing data here so we can understand, right? So in our operation DB we need to have the ideas of a charging station. We need to be able to save charging stations, charging station is plural. So we need to be able to also be saving EVSEs we have, and then of course their relationship to our charging stations, which charging station they belong to, which station they belong to. We also need to know our connectors. So this is very helpful for like maybe later on tracking which one is bad, which one is not working right now, which one has been decommissioned. You get the idea. So we need to keep track of these things. So connectors, these are very important things to keep track of, right? So we even need to definitely have a record of what operator do we need and what technicians are available. So these are users. So we need to, let me shape this down. So these are operational, these are entities we own. We need to also have database for records for all our users. Understand? And then we need operator profiles. Then we have a technician profiles. And what's the user profile? Technician profiles. And so now we are knowing our DB how it looks like. So just trying to just commission this will teach us of how basically how much database structures we need, right? So the key databases we will need to store. So we need this information, we need this information to be able to even commission something. Right. So what is a commissioning? So to our platform, we need to be able to track a new commissioning. So I'll just call that a job, a commissioning job. So that will be, let's call this a commission job. So this commission job is what we track what we are looking for. So I'll just put braces here to just put key data structures that we will need to be aware of. So commissioning jobs, for example, like we said, the EVSC will need to know its station, station ID. The connectors will definitely need to know their um, the connectors will definitely need to know their both their EVSC ID and their station ID. So they need to know that. So that's what forms the relationships between our structures. Technicians, operation profile needs to know their user profile, their user ID. This one needs to know their user ID as well. Okay, so we have all this. Okay, so I think this is giving us an idea of how it looks like. So for a commission job, we need to know what station we're commissioning. So we need to know the station ID that we're commissioning. So we need to know what technician or shans that are going to basically need to be there. You get the idea? So we need to be there to handle that job. So that's very relevant thing to model. What technician is going to handle that job. So we can also put things like the date of the this thing. For stations, I just remember now stations need to know we need to know what the location of the station will look like. So stations will have their basically geographical location, so latitude, longitude. So the location, we can also put the address, so we have it as text. That's good also. The location, the address. So this is where the station will be, and this is the job that is going to be commissioned. So we need to have status as well. So let me just break this down. we need to have the job status. So this is where we track things like the status of it. More like, is it pending? You get the idea. Pending. This is eating our space. Let me group this together and shift it towards. I'll come back to this workflow, but okay, this is works like magic. So let's put it like this so we can have space for our data models. So I'm just teaching you to explain the key processes that I go through, right? To kind of get a full data model of, okay, this is what we're going to be building, right? So we have the pending state. That's good. So as we're going to be improving these things. So let's just go through the workflow ourselves. Like, what would it look like? An overall idea of, okay, this is how it's going to look like. So the first things we want is, as we're going through the flow, we'll be discovering what we would need, what our app will need. So we definitely need the operator to create a job, create a commissioning job. So operator login, or operator access, or login, access, login, whatever that is. So, or authorization, we need to have that authorization, authentication, and authorization. Just call it auth since it covers that. So operator auth is the first thing that might be necessary. I want to use a, okay, operator auth. Red looks like a problem. Blue. Okay, operator auth works. So for operator auth to work, then the next thing we'll need, operator needs to, operator would create a job, create a commission job, create a commissioning job. Then the operator will basically next get a commissioning job. So this is where he adds technicians and everything. So, and then he basically invites the technician. So technician gets the invite. So once the job is created, a technician will be added here, and then technician gets invitation. So they need to be notified somehow, which is why I said notification is important. So whether I'm going to provide that here, I will notify them. You get the idea. But we already have a technician database going on. We need a way to keep track of invitations. So I would not keep this here. I'll keep this as a. So do we keep this commission job invitation pending? So we can keep this as invited to. So this will keep track of the invitation, or we can keep a separate invitation table to keep track of all our invitations. That might make more sense. Pending. So I think we should keep track of, but then we have to link it to the commission. Let's keep it simple for now. We'll work on that. Let's keep the status as technician invitation. So the commission is pending. So we've not worked on it yet, right? So it's pending. It starts with pending, and then we'll go through the status of the job. Or can I even do both? Status is invited technician, and then we can go through. So let's create a separate table for invitations. So this will be powerful for like notification system on the app or something like that. So you can see your invitation. So this will contain something like the invitation ID, but the main thing is we just need the message and status. So this status will just be like the pending, accepted, or rejected. Right. So we have that going on. So let's call it invitation stage. So it's a stage, invitation stage for this. Why are you breaking down? Just continue on one line so we can keep track. Okay, I will just within okay these two. Okay, so we have a rough idea of what this will look like. So the main idea is operator does these arrowheads. We don't want this one. So operator does this commission. Technician gets invitation, and then the technicians will now physically go to the location, right? So the workflow is they'll go to the location and basically make the installation. They will install everything, right? So our software is not aware of that right now. So we don't need to model what our software is not will not be aware of, right? So let's imagine the technician goes to that place, they've accepted the invitation and whatever. We'll keep track of that. That's going on fine, and then they perform the installation completely. But now they need to be able to verify that this connects. How do they connect the the charging station? They just installed with correlation with what we already have in the database. So we need some form of a way the technician can activate it. The technician basically registers the station via QR code or serial number. Let's use serial number, makes it easy. So serial number. So this is where the technicians basically types in the serial number to connect that to the exact job and exact this thing, the exact station to everything. So once you connect the serial number and calls a particular endpoint, so we know that we need several services that's going to be happening here. We need the identity service. What kind of color is this? Let's do a deep shade of blue and a white text. So we have the identity section. This is what will handle our auth, or you can call it authentication. So authentication service will handle that, and then we'll definitely have a service, a group of APIs that will handle things like let's call it charger management. So charger services. So this will just handle everything involving our chargers. So both the station, the everything chargers. Understand? Or charging point service. So this will handle everything there, right? So on that point, we'll have a this is the service that communicates to our database and keeps everything modeling going on. We definitely need that service. From the technician app perspective, we'll definitely need certain features too as well. Like let me cut this out. We need this. So technician portal. We'll definitely need some key features too. Authentication is a no-brainer, but let's definitely put that there. And then we'll definitely need something that involves the charger initialization. You get the idea. So we'll not go into the exact endpoint here right now, but the idea is we have something that a service here that connects to the charger endpoint that would travel this information to our platform and keep track of it. So we have that going. That just registers the the session via a serial number. So that way our charger is aware of that. So what would that activity do? That would just trigger database to update to a status. So commission job invitation charger, you can call it initiated. So that was the first thing our another state our commission job will be aware of. Like, okay, we've initiated this charger, right? So this is initiated now. Then the technician can go on and turn on the charger and let it do its start sending its first signal. So connect it to our backend. So it starts sending the first signal. So our gateway is aware of it. Our gateway is aware of it. So what will end up happening is the gateway starts to, so let's call it the technician boot the charger, right? So we have to be okay with technician can boot the charger before they register it. It won't matter, right? If you boot it before you register it, our we can put a way for this to block unauthorized entries. We could do that, but for now, let's just not worry about that for now. We'll talk about security and this thing later on. So, but for now, let's just go through the happy part. Make sure everything is working just fine. Let's let the happy part work before we go into sad parts. So, just the happy part of how the commission workflow should work. So, hopefully, this goes right. Technician does everything right. The station via this, then they boot the charger. So the charger would basically send a signal to our gateway. Gateway starts to receive telemetry, and it just keeps saving that. So what would the telemetry DB look like? It's just basically a database of events. You get the idea. So we'll have like heartbeats. So just basically sending information going on. We'll have things like notification events. So this will be like charging events. So heartbeats, records, charging, right? So this is time series because it's going to be coming a lot. So we need to store them here. And so this is where it tells us like the health events, chargers health. So it depends on the provider. We're going to look at the OCPP protocol and come up with all this information and uh, this is health events. So if it's the online, offline, this is charging, if it's not charging, not charging, all this kind of events, we need to store it here. Then we need to also store things like the raw OCPP logs. So raw OCPP logs. So the raw logs basically just give us everything that's coming from this raw, and then these one are the ones that we passed out and organized. So this will be helpful later for analysis or keeping track of things, or when we query to see what's going on with our chargers. We will basically have ideas of what's going on there, where the fault is coming from the connector or the EVSE or something like that. So these all things to be here to track their health, their voltage, their everything, what's going on. So this is what the DB will be basically storing, right? So we put charger starts to receive this telemetry information continuously. Our gateway is happy to accept that for now. Drop everything here. What else again do we need to worry about? So that doesn't mean the charger is basically connected. How do we make sure the charger is now available? So once this receives, our OCP gateway starts to gossip certain events that we need to be worried about. So example events could be something like uh, what do they call it? EVSE boot events. So we can do the booting events. We could do like the connected events if we connected it. So we could create certain events that will help us track the states of our so uh, connection connected, connection disconnected, or EVSE disconnected. So that we can store it. We can store these ones in our operation DB. So we would have something like a telemetry system that would handle everything involving telemetry of our chargers going on here. So this is not charging point, this is telemetry handling all these events. So to consume all these events and basically store relevant things for us to that we need to know. That's important to so that's a telemetry service doing that job for us. Okay, so if we receive our first boot event, the telemetry service will instantly know that okay, something booted. If we do not have that boot, it will basically commission. If we don't have that this thing, we know that okay, this is the first time it's booting and this is good. So this is where we receive, we start to receive charging station charger information, EVLC. We can be keeping their status here. So the status of the EVSE. So status could be, like we said, uh, charging. You get the idea. Charging. This is not perfect, but it gives us a rough idea of how this will look like. Also, we could also keep things like what else is there? So we've booted the charger, receiving telemetry, and we're doing this. What else can we do? All right, that's good. So the technician already boots it. Technician can now start to charge it. So I think we have booting all sorted out. The technician can now, we can handle that flow. The next flow is technician starts to test the charging. So they must have a way of testing the charging. Test the charger. So to test the charger now, the technician will basically scan the QR code via QR code. So via QR code. So the technician will charge it, scan this via QR code. The QR code will already be placed on the device. So they will use their technician app, scan it. But since it's coming from technician app, we would basically know that. So let's say this will be charging it. We'll have like a charge test section. So this will do a charge test. So that way it keeps authentic, it keeps payment, so we don't have to pay. It's not about payment. So this will still connect to our charging point. This that would uh, handle these things. So you get the idea. What else again? So we also have user management. User management. So we have the technician management system. We have the operator management system. We can call it profile management that combines everything together. That could be a better idea. Profile management. So user is, we have auth. Auth is already user, so profile just works. So auth profile. So we get the idea. Okay, now we have this guy tests the charger via QR code. What would happen there? What would I think would happen there? So if they call the charger test, this will call the charger point service that would do some logic. So what would we expect that to do that we have not provided yet? So the idea is to trigger a charge. So this will trigger a charge. So to trigger a charge, this guy needs some form of API. Yeah, the idea, some form of API. Let me remove this text, move it away. So this is our gateway. It needs some form of, so our gateway already has OCPP, let's call it OCP pass. That's the one that will pass the OCP gateway. That's the one that will handle the telemetry stuff. Then there will be and trigger the event. Then there will need a OCPP command. So this command one is the one, the API is an API that would basically call from the charging point. We call this command. So we call this command. That command will basically handle everything involving triggering charger. So since we're on test, so charging it, so charge test will call charge points on our backend. Our backend will basically make a direct call to OCP command. OCP command will trigger the charger to start charging, and the technicians should hopefully activate the right charger. So if they activate the right charger and the charger starts to charge, then they confirm the charger as boom, the charger is good to go. So on their own app, they can see the trigger that goes back. So the EVSE will start to trigger events that involves charging, and then we can get the connected status, uh, charging status, connected, disconnected. So connected charging status, and then when it disconnects, we'll get the disconnect status. You get the idea. We can create more status to help us understand, but I'm just giving a rough idea. Otherwise, it will be too complicated, right? So we get the status back with the event broker. Hopefully, we receive it. The driver starts to receive the status live on his app that, oh, we're charging. So it knows that end to end, this is, sorry, the driver rather, the technician. So it knows that end to end, this is working. So the charger test section of his own app is showing him that this is working. Understand? So this is working, everything's working fine. So if he knows these things are working fine, then he can basically click approve, right? So we need to have a way to approve that. So charger approve. So charger approve will still call the charge point API. So the charge points API. So this is a group of sections that we will need. We'll break this down into APIs later and all that, but just want to get the idea that okay, everything here we're talking to the charge point. That's the main thing. So they'll all talk to the charge point API, and then this will handle updating some status. That's important. So this charger would have to have status. It's not charging station now, but our EVSC, it has a status of like it might start with inactive, and then we have active, then we have charging, we have decommissioned, charging, and decommissioned. So things like that. So the technician will trigger that and it will move from inactive to active. So once we have active, inactive, and then that same thing will trigger the commission job to be from initiated to maybe tested and then maybe commissioned. Let me just give it a simple word for now, commissioned. And then we'll have a full commission life cycle. And our charger should be active at that point and ready to use. So our charger should not show to anybody, any driver, anytime unless we have it in an active state. What is the active state? Inactive, active. So it should only show it to a driver when it's active, right? And that's how we know that this is active. Charger is active in this station. So this will be very helpful. So we have our data structures that we'll use to make this work, right? So with just this flow, we've basically been able to understand more points in the application. So we've added more features to our technician portal. Of course, we added new features to the operator portal as well. We need to put those visible so we know. But this is the workflow that I go through to come up with features that an app would need. So we have a complete workflow. Definitely we need auths. Then we need it's an operator. It needs the user management, user and profile management. It's not user management particularly, it's profile management. So profile management. User is basically authentication user. We don't need to see that here. We just need to see their profile. Then we need to manage, of course, chargers and stations. So charger and stations, that's kind of very important into charger and stations. Then we also definitely need to be able to manage commission jobs. Commission jobs. Alright, so once we have this, we have the basic features our app needs to perform a commission in operation, and the database we'll need. So we know the data structures we will need to store, we know the features each of the applications need to have, otherwise we won't have a proper operation, right? We will definitely need to break this down into how they connect together into a, a document that explains it, but overall we have an idea of how this would be built. So I hope this wasn't too long. I hope this was clear enough. If you have any questions, you can drop it in the comment section. And thank you. See See you in the next one where we'll explain another flow, which is how the driver will discover the station. Thank you.